Hello, everyone, and welcome to session 4 of our virtual Marine Money Hong Kong Ship Finance Forum. Although we would have loved to be in Hong Kong and to be seeing you all in person, in times like these, we have no other choice but to resume our networking and intelligence sharing online. I'm your host, Andrew Oates. In this session, we will focus on debt, equity, leasing, and bonds, deal structures, and access to shipping finance in Asia. To begin the session, Ms. Amber Fan will deliver a presentation titled Maritime Asset Value Overview and Outlook, Tanker, Bulker, Container, Gas, and Cruise. Amber is the Regional Manager of Client Services at VesselsValue and oversees the client services to VesselsValue's Asia Pacific customers. Over the last few years, she has been working closely with shipping finance banks, leasing companies, ship owners, and operators in the region. Amber, over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for your kind introduction. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. For those of you that's in Asia, and good morning for those of you that's in Europe. My name is Amber Fan, as introduced by Andrew. So we are going to have a look at asset values in this presentation. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in this presentation, I will be covering market value, our position in the cycle, as well as the forecast for bulker, container, tanker, and gas market. We will also be having a look at cruise ship utilizations and asset value pre and post COVID-19. Next. Okay, skip, yeah. So about VesselsValue, quickly, we are a leading maritime asset valuer and market intelligence provider. So our online service covers daily updated values, commercial and technical database, vessel tracking, and trade analysis. Next. Yeah, so headquartered in London, and we have several offices worldwide. Singapore is our Asia headquarters, and we have a Chinese language research office in China. Next. Okay, so our subscribers spread across leading shipping finance banks and leasing companies, as well as ship owners, operators, last but not least, professional services in the maritime industry. Okay, yeah. So we will start with dry box sectors. We all know COVID-19 first hit the China ground. So that has been affecting dry bulk demand. Let's have a look how that has affected the values. On this chart, we have 5-year-old fixed age values for all subtypes of dry bulk sectors. To the far right, we have the value as of today, and in the middle, that's same time last year. So we can actually see that the value has been dropping since August last year. With the COVID-19 in first half of year, number of transactions has been really low. First, because the outlook is unclear, as well as the delivery of vessel could not happen conveniently. So the value has been bottomed out in March to early June. That's the trough you see on the curve to the right there. Values have been picking up since early June as a result of more and more transactions happening and demand recovery. So let's have a look at an example next. Okay, so we have on the screen here the vessel Rose Bank. That's a typical vessel valuation page you would see. She's a 10-year-old Capesize vessel. She was valued at 19.5. Next page, please. Yeah, she's valued at 19.5 on 1st January, and then sold at 16.5 in March. Her value today is about 16.8 with a slight recovery since the transaction. If we put this vessel in the long-term historical cycles, we would be able to see that the fixed age curve, which is the blue line on the screen, showing clear market cycles without depreciation. So her value today of 16.8 is actually below the long-term median of 20.55. If we do the same for all other dry box sectors using 5-year-old vessels, we actually see that Capesize and Panamaxes are leading the recovery. They are getting closer to the long-term median. However, handy bulkers are still well below the historical median. That's where we see there's a lot upside potentials. Next, we will have a look at the forecast. So our partner in VMR provided us this forecast. And the outlook for dry box sector is positive. Looking at the curve, by the red line, we have Capesize vessels. The recovery first happened with Capes, but we do expect to see a correction after a short-term boom. Yeah, so overall, that's been positive for Capes, for dry box sectors. Next, we have containers. So container demand has been hit hard by COVID-19 since the global consumer confidence has been low. Let's have a look how that has affected the values. Yeah, so similarly, we have 5-year-old fixed age values on the screen. We can see that starting from 2020, the values have been dropping into June this year, and there's been uptakes since July. That's to the right of the curve that we see there. That's led by the large containers of ULCV and Panamax. If we zoom into smaller vessels, next page, please. Yeah, if we zoom into the smaller vessels, we can see actually the smaller sizes are following a similar trend. Yeah, we will have a look with a closer example. So this vessel on the screen is Isabel. She's handy container, 10-year-old. Her value as of 1st January was actually 9.5. And we can see the valuation curve go down, and she was sold for 5.75 at beginning of August. So her value today is 6.4. That's a slight recovery since last transaction. Okay, so let's have a look where it stands in the historical cycle. Her current value of 6.4 is actually way below historical median of 13.7. In fact, if we have a closer look, we will be able to see that the current value is very close to the historical median, minimum of happened in February 2017. Looking at the whole container market, we see that the larger vessels, ULCV and post-Panamaxes, retain the value better than the smaller ones. Worth noting that smaller vessels, Panamax, Handy, and below, actually still in the lowest 10% of the values observed historically. Let's have a look at the forecast. So we have been noticing that trade demand for container vessels have been recovering, led by the larger sizes, ULCV or post-Panamax containers, together with charter rate recovery. Knowing where we are standing in the cycle for the smaller sizes, Panamax and below, we actually see there's upside on the smaller sizes as well. Yeah. Next, we will have a look at the tanker market. So tanker market has had a strong first half of 2020 as a result of low oil price. The demand for tankers used for floating storage has been really hot and pushed up the spot market. So if we have a look at the values, next page, please. Yeah. Similarly, on the far right, we have today's value, and in the middle, that's same time last year. We can see that January 2020, tankers have started a strong year across all types. Values have been staying strong as a result of strong demand for spot charters of crude tankers using for floating storage. We've seen large number of second-hand transactions even during the COVID lockdown period. So going into April, we actually see that 5-year-old VLCC value peaked at 76 million. Since then, value had a correction. So today, the value has returned to very similar level as of last year this time. Okay, let's have a look at the VLCC example. Okay, so TI Healers, ex-TI Healers, current name Carmen, she's 15-year-old VLCC, and her value at the beginning of the year is around 36 million. She was sold at 38 million in April. That's actually a very well-timed transaction because it was able to be delivered into a really hot crude tanker market. You can see the value on the screen for the current market. It's just about 30 million. So comparing to the long-term historical median, maybe we just zoom into next page, Andrew. Yeah, so zooming into the longer historical median, we actually see that current value of 30.3 is reverting to the median of 27.6. Yeah. So overall in tanker market, we see values relatively stable. They are within 10% variance to the median. However, looking at the forecast, we've been monitoring demand supply for oil and crude tankers. We see that on a year-on-year comparison to 2019 ton-mile demand, it's actually been lower. So the demand for transportation of crude and product is relatively weak at this stage. Combining with the correction in values and spot rate, the outlook is actually conservative. Next, we will move into the LPG sector. So LPG sector has also been affected by the reduced US oil production and export. Let's have a look at the values. So on the screen here, we can actually see that LPG also started quite strong in 2020. And however, due to the reduced demand for ethylene transportation, the value has been dropping together with the freight rate. Freight rate has been dropped for about 60% from beginning of the year to mid 2020. So we can see a similar trend followed by the values. Recently, we see an uptake from July. You can see that's to the end of the right side of the curve. Having said that, the values, next page, yeah. The values across all subtypes of LPG actually are still above long-term historical median. That's probably suggesting that LPG vessels are slightly overvalued. So looking at the forecast, we can see that demand has been picking up slightly for LPG vessels together with spot rates. Just that the demand and supply balance has still been delicate, so the forecast is relatively conservative. Next section, we will have a look at cruise ships, last but not least. This sector has definitely been under spotlight since last few months. We see that many cruise ships has been trying to call ports but been rejected. So quite a few of them have been going into layup, actually most of the vessels, since March 2020. On the screen here, what we have is VesselsValue cruise trade AIS data. So on that, you have the gray color curve, which shows the percentage of vessels not underway from 2015. So the usual number from 2015 was below 10%, but at the moment it has increased beyond 50%. Next page, please. Looking at the daily passenger mile comparison, we actually see that this year, 2020, represented by the red line, has dropped about 80% compared to 2019 figures represented by the gray line. So that's quite a huge drop. So we'll have a look at real transactions. This vessel on the screen, she's only one of quite a few transactions that we observed in last month or so. They've been sold at very low price to the secondhand market, if not directly to scrap. So the vessel here on the screen, Maritime, her asking price have been dropping from 120 million back in November last year for a few times to 10 million now, and she concluded a deal at 10. As a result, the value has been dropping to 15 million. So this trend has been observed for other similar assets as well. Next page, please. Yeah, so on here we actually see that that's a year-on-year, sorry, not year-on-year. It's from beginning of 2020 till now, value change for various sizes of cruise ships and build year. For the 1990 build and 2000 build, the value drop has been significant as a result of transactions, and that has also been affecting the younger vessels. With that, I will go into my summary. Yeah, so next page, please. Generally, we have seen dry bulk values and charter rates recover, so that trend we expect to continue. For containers, the trade has been recovering, and that's led by the large container sizes. On the other hand, we see tanker values normalizing after a strong spring. We will be a bit cautious or conservative on that. LPG also have a very delicate supply and demand balance. We will be continue watching cruise utilization and also transactions in this market to see where cruise value are going next. Okay, yeah, so that's pretty much of my presentation today. Thank you for listening. With time limit, I can't be covering all asset types such as offshore and vehicle carriers. There are also a lot more data behind what has been discussed within this 15 minutes. So if you do have any question, please send it to the host, Andrew, and we can have a discussion on that. Otherwise, we can take it up later after today's session. Thank you, and see you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Amber. It's amazing how that cruise ship declined by almost 90% in the last 4 months. Very interesting.
Yeah, exactly. That's quite terrible.
For members of the audience, if you want to also get in touch with VesselsValue to discuss anything that was mentioned in this presentation, you can see the email address on the screen here.